Hi, my name is
Okay.
Dennis Gill with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is 26 February 2023, and I've got the pleasure to speak with Phellep Snow.
Yes.
Thanks, sir, for sitting down and talking to us.
Awesome. Thank you
If you
for the
could just give,
opportunity.
yeah, if you could just give us a little bit of background on who you are. Where were you born? Where did you grow up, go to school, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I like to tell people that I had a bit of a migrant upbringing, a mix of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas.
Okay.
I moved to Arkansas maybe around my 14th birthday, just the dissolution of my parents' marriage, and where I just spent the remainder of, I guess you could say, my upbringing there, graduated high school, and joined the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why did you join the Marine Corps?
Well, I'll have to tell you that for me, I was one of those, I guess you could say, buddy program candidates. A lot of people hear about it, but the recruiter approached me and just where I initially turned him down, and the next thing he asked was, "Do you know?" and gave my friend's name, and of course, me being the gullible teenager, yes, yes, I know him. And one thing led to another, and with enough months of effort, just the funny part about it, we were at, out of all places, at McDonald's.
Okay.
I go to use the restroom, and so I'm coming out expecting cheeseburgers, and instead there's contracts. And my friend is filling out one, and he's like, "Man, come on, you should do this too. We said we were buddies. We'd always stick together." And I would say probably from, I guess you could say, a practical aspect, not my best decision making, because there was scholarship money and college opportunities on the table for me. But I agreed and signed the contract, went to MEPS, took the test. I passed. My friend didn't. And like I say, a long line of people, I'm sure, that have had a similar experience. But yeah, I say, obviously, did not go to college, went to boot camp, and had a lot of great adventures.
Do you have any family members that were military at all?
I do. I did not find out actually until after I'd separated from the Marine Corps that my grandfather, Pearson Anderson, served in World War II.
Okay.
So it
What branch
was
of service was he in?
Army.
He was in Army. Okay.
Yeah, but it was one of those things that, and I'd heard so many times before where people say that they had family members that served, and some had done phenomenal things but came home and never spoke about it. And I don't know what my grandfather did while he was in the Army, but yeah, never knew about it until we were at another family member's funeral. And as we're passing through the graveyard, I see his headstone, and it says U.S. Army, World War II vet. And I'm thinking, okay. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's important to get that out.
Yes.
So, did you have any idea of what you wanted to do in the Marine Corps? Or you just did what they told you, pretty much? Or is that another bad decision?
No, so it's funny because where I did not know what I wanted to do in the Marine Corps, just as I mentioned, it was more or less a, I guess, just a decision I did not put a lot of thought into. I just knew the direction that I was going in, and more or less thought the rest would fall in place over time. And the one thing I knew that I didn't want was to be a radio operator. Even told my recruiter, "Hey, see the war movies? The guy that usually does not make it through the opening credits that has the big antenna on his back? That's not what I want. I would love to fix radios, but I don't want to be that guy." He's like, "Sure." So as fate would have it, and me being young and dumb, as I was leaving MEPS, I got pulled aside and was told, "Hey, there's some issues. If you still want to ship today, we need to take care of some things, line through and initial these items. So just where, and I'm just kind of going off memory here, but yeah, I followed the instructions. Let's flash forward a couple of months down the road where I graduated basic training. I'm finishing Marine combat training, and that is where you find out what your actual occupational specialty or MOS is. And they're going down the line and they're calling off all of these names, and I'm just waiting for them to say my name, and I hear it and it's like, snow! And I start like actually just say it, like I guess you could say, advancing the words that I expect to hear. And the first two were like good. It was like field, radio, and I was expecting technician. They said operator, and I lost it to where no bearing, no discipline. I'm screaming, breach of contract, you nullified it. That's the one thing I said I didn't want. And so I was pulled aside. They took my service record book and they looked at it, and someone explained to me that I had selected several options and some that I crossed out. And they told me that when you cross everything out, that when we look at things and we see communications, electronics, and utilities, and all that adds up to be a field radio operator, get your bread on the bus. You're going to 29 Palms. And it was the beginning of a few years, I guess you could say, of me being a disgruntled person. But in the end, it worked out because I did have someone that showed a bit of kindness to me, helped me out in a point of struggle where my career planner at the time, Raymond Semino, and it was where he inspired me to become a career planner. And once again, fate, it worked out in my favor where I was able to get that as my, or do what we call in the Marine Corps a lateral move, that I transitioned over to become a career planner. And it afforded me a lot of opportunities to help my fellow Marines. And also just with the job that I have now, that I'm able to utilize those skills. I have to say it was a bit of a learning process. I think that some people may have gotten a bit bruised by my lack of knowledge and my good intentions that I guess you could say were paving the way to hell for all of us, but I feel it worked out for the best.
So did you end up being a radio operator?
Oh yeah, I was a radio operator for about 7 years, but it just added to the adventure, and out of that I went from being a radio operator to getting additional, I guess say, opportunities for leadership, where my second Iraq deployment, I was actually the communications chief for a surgical unit where we were building up a hospital out in Al-Assad Air Base in preparations for the Fallujah and Ramadi battles that brought about a lot of injuries. Some unfortunately didn't make it home. And it's one that people say where the things that your struggles of your past prepare you for your opportunities for future success. And that was definitely one of those, that out of all the struggles I had in prior years as a radio operator and my, like say, state of being disgruntled, I had a lot of challenges that I was not expecting there, where we had to really adapt to be prepared for the mission of communications for patient tracking, things of that nature. And when the time came, I guess you could say, myself and my team, we were ready to meet the requirements and build up a network that could allow for notification of incoming casualties, so that the team could be prepared to provide the needed medical care, and also to pass on the word for the next higher level facility. Just once again, I feel that where it was one piece of a big puzzle, but you got to have the the pieces in place to make things work out. So,
Yeah. What year did you enlist?
I enlisted in 1997.
97, and you went to where for basic?
I went to San Diego, where
San Diego was basic.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was once again another piece of good fortune that I enlisted in Memphis, Tennessee,
Yeah.
and where at the time the depots were about full, so I was given the rare opportunity to choose where I wanted to go. I heard enough Sanfleet stories about Parris Island, San Diego, so I was like, no, I'm going to take a hard pass on Parris Island, San Diego, here I come. But
Yeah.
even that had its unique challenges, but once again, joy in the journey.
Yeah. How long is the training to become a radio operator?
Oh, I think it was about, I would say, 2 to 3 months. It wasn't quite as long as the time that I spent in basic training, but a lot quicker than what I expected. Unfortunately, a lot of it, though, really comes to play afterward. I guess you could say on-the-job training, where you get the basics in the school, and then afterward, everything gets real, and you find out that you know nothing at all.
Right. Let's fast forward just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, that's, it's funny because everyone says that they remember, or they remember where they were. The moment the towers fell, when they got news of the strike. For myself, I was actually in, once again, 29 Palms, California. But this time, I was there for a training exercise where I had been stationed there maybe about 5-6 months prior. And so we're training to go on my first Western Pacific deployment, or what we call in the Marine Corps Westpac.
Okay.
And just going through morning routine, prepping radios that will be sent out for various training exercises. And I remember this young guy where Francis Manning, I think I may have been a corporal. He was, I believe, a lance corporal or an E3 at the time. But he comes barreling into our tent. We're going to war! We're going to war! And try not to curse here, but I just thinking in my mind, it's like, dude, what the F are you talking about? Like, shut your dang mouth. And it's just one that he's a bit animated. Other people around are seemingly excited about something. And he explains that someone just bombed one of the Twin Towers. And so being in communications, you do have that, I guess you could say, privilege, if I could add that label to it, of being able to access the internet. Well, at that time, when others did not have, I guess, say, readily or say means of it, especially when you're out in the desert training. And right as I go in, we see where on the CNN webpage, they have video of a plane hitting the tower. I don't know if this was the first or the second, but I do remember that feeling of my blood running cold. Kind of feels the same right now. It's like the same sensation every time, because all you can think is, it just got real. And we had formations, all training was suspended, and everyone was thinking, we might be boots on ground in the next 36 hours, like however long it takes. And we did not deploy right in, but it was one of those things that where the difference was, that was the marking point in time for me for the difference in my military service, that I had spent so many years in training exercises being told that one day it might come, and now all I could think was, it's really here. And part of me asking, am I truly ready?
So it's fair to say the gravity of that day was apparent to you.
Yes.
You didn't have to look back on it. You knew right then, okay, this is a big deal.
Yes.
This changes everything.
Yes.
Okay. At what point do you deploy to Iraq?
So I would say that it was maybe about 9 months later, maybe 9 months to 1 year, because for us, where we were already slated for deployment, as I mentioned before, with our Western Pacific cruise, or I say cruise, but it's more of a forward deployment of military personnel for rapid response operations.
Okay.
And where we were on that deployment for 6 months and back home for about 2, and then right back out into Iraq. And one of the things, I don't know how many people may actually speak of it, but in that time where we were deployed, and for lack of a better word, or lack of a better phrase, active participants in the global war on terrorism, that we did have occurrences. One that I can remember in particular, that there were hostile forces that engaged our military personnel while we were in training. I think we may have been training in Kuwait, and someone attacked our ammo site or ammunitions storage facility, and where I wasn't anywhere near the, I guess you could say, actual engagement, but it was another stark reminder that everything that your senior enlisted told you about the enemy being out there and it only being a matter of time and not a matter of if but when, we're now living in that when.
Right. And this is prior to going to Iraq?
Yes, where we had that deployment, and then trying to think here. This I just know that it was the initial invasion of Iraq, where we had our Western Pacific ship deployment.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was aboard the Bellawood and the USS Bellawood,
Okay.
and we came back, and from there, we're, like I said, home for only a couple of months, and then right back into the fire, which is another interesting story, but I won't go into the details with that.
So you come back, and then you go back, and actually this time you deploy into Iraq.
Yes.
Tell me what that's like. You witnessed the events of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been a year or so, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been, and now you're finally in the Middle East, and you're finally in combat.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Nothing like what I expected, and I say that because in my past thoughts, where I always thought that when we would deploy into a combat theater such as what we had with the initial invasion of Iraq, I guess in my mind I thought that we would be things would progress much quicker than what they were, and I also thought that there would be, I guess, what I expected and what I got were very different. Whereas when we arrived to Kuwait, and then having to organize DARE, to see that there was one element that was moving personnel, there was another element that was moving equipment, and then there was the element in the middle that was putting everything together and deciding what units would go where to support which particular mission. And where at the time I was with I was part of First Marine Logistics group. And so not being there in, I guess you could say, what people would consider the front line, but convoy support and being out on the road. But even with that, hearing information over the radio of contact of a vehicle that was ahead or behind by sniper fire, or driving through and seeing the remnants of the past battles, of seeing the destroyed structures, the vehicles, even the people that were there, where there were some instances that we would drive through and you could tell that the battle had not been, I guess, that long ago, to where you could see the, like I say, just the remains there. But it was a humbling experience. And I even recall just having that moment where I thought, okay, I may have to make that decision. And once again, just scared young man there. And anybody that says that they weren't scared, I feel that they were lying, because there's a degree of fear for all of us. And for myself, I recall that our convoy was passing through, and there were people, or what I saw mostly women, that they were washing clothes in what appeared to be a ditch, but there was just a like long, I guess you could say, trench where there was water, and they were there, and from what I saw, washing clothes. And so once again, we're providing security, and you're out there actively searching for threats. And I saw where a woman just whipped up. It was like a swift action, started like twirling like an item around, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like what's happening here? And I trained my rifle on her, and just having that moment of, okay, I'm thinking that I'm going to very well have to fire on a woman that my first and possibly only kill in combat is going to be on a woman. And so as I'm going through the decision-making process of this and thinking, okay, I have to engage because it's a lot of people whose safety may depend on it. Right. I'm thinking all of this, and then, as I guess you could say, fortune would have it, she pops her item, and right as like I'm depressing on the trigger, and it was an article of clothing. She was just wringing the damn thing out, and talk about like a hard sigh of relief. And it was one of those things that stuck with me, and I had a conversation with my leadership afterward, or I would say my leadership, but it was more like a couple of my sergeants, one or two, but just to where it really dawned on me that you know, this may not be a close call next time, that I may have to go with the full depression of that trigger. But kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, but it was just something for me that, and it served as a stark reminder throughout that it could be that situation, and how people spoke of eras past, and even talking with some veterans now, that they had to engage a person, either harming or killing them, that wasn't what they thought the enemy would look like. And it makes things difficult for them now, being back home and seeing people on the streets that have similar characteristics, to where it can be quite triggering, quite disturbing.
Yeah. I guess nothing can prepare you for every contingency. That kind of thing happens. I mean, you watch the war movies, and it's, you know, you see these soldiers on the other side, and it seems black and white, but when you actually get there,
everything is shades of gray.
yeah, totally different. You're a radio operator still, right, at this point?
Yeah, at that point, I was still a radio operator.
So what are your duties when you're out in the field?
As a radio operator, where one, well, I would say even before we would go out to our, say, mission, is acquiring and preparing the equipment for use. So making sure that first off everything works, that you have adequate backups, including power supplies, accessories, so forth. And then once you are in the mission, monitoring for incoming communication, passing on any communication that you have been assigned to the appropriate recipient. And so it may be, let's just say, for someone sending a communication to your small unit, and that could be just the team that's on your truck, and letting them know, hey, this is coming up, be prepared, or we may stop in a few minutes. Like I said, major and minor communications. Right. But also just if something happens to where you may be out of the picture for a moment, just once again, passing it on and addressing those three, I guess, principles that I learned early on as far as what do I know, who needs to know, and have I told them?
Right. Gotcha. So you traveled a lot in convoys, I'm assuming?
Yes, the first deployment.
Yeah. Any your convoy ever attacked?
Where my vehicle or anything like that, no, not directly, but other vehicles that were in the convoy, they did receive some engagements, but this was before improvised explosive devices or IEDs entered the picture.
Gotcha. So you're taking small arms fire, right?
Yes.
Mostly. Anything that, other than the event you just mentioned, anything stand out about that deployment, good or bad? I'm sure there's some good in it, right?
I mean, it was good because I feel that it gave the experience to where a lot of the, I guess, wondering and in some cases imagining things to be worse than they actually were. I had crossed that bridge, so when it came time for me to deploy again, I had at least a small semblance of what to expect. So that made things a bit easier. And of course, when you have those brief moments, though, that downtime, the shenanigans that we all can get into, that as well. So it was, despite what I guess you could say some others may have experienced or their opinions of it, that as well as every deployment to me was a growing experience. There's pain that came with it, a bit of a trauma, but I just now at this point in my life just believe that I have to find purpose in the pain and just try to find some way to continue to make it grow, and if whenever I can, help others.
Were you physically wounded?
No, not physically wounded during any of my deployments. It's one that I have a lot of service-connected disabilities where they're, like I say, the invisible wounds, yes, that did occur from my deployments, but not where I received injuries from shrapnel or I was not shot or anything like that.
What's the tempo like? Are you guys working every day, or is there any downtime?
Well, the first deployment, we had a mix of it, that we would be working long days, and then, but it was all about, or say, getting to the next checkpoint. It really didn't have as much, I guess you could say, calamity as what I felt my other deployments had.
How many times did you deploy to Iraq?
To Iraq, 3.
3 times.
Yeah.
When was the next deployment?
The second one was the one that I spoke about as far as being a radio chief, I think around 2004, where I deployed to Iraq and was tasked to be the communications chief for Alpha Surgical Company in Al-Assad.
I see.
So, yeah.
And how about the third one?
The third one, I was with 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, and we were in the Barwana, on the Anbar province, and in specific Barwana. That it was that one where was the most surprising, because I went with that one. I was a career planner or a retention specialist, and in my mind, I thought that I was going to be like where some people call the administrative personnel, or they said POG, person other than grunt. I initially thought I'm going to be the mega POG, because it just one of those things to where I did not think I would be doing the things that I had. Where in fact, our battalion sergeant major, J.J. Ellis, where may he rest in peace, he just told me, "You think you're going to be out here riding around on mechanized patrols or getting vehicles to take you to go do a re-enlistment ceremony?" Well, he had this nickname for me, would call me Deacon. Be like, "Tell you got another thing coming, Deacon. Get your ass out there and you're going to freaking patrol the streets just like every other Marine in this battalion." And so here I was, in some cases, with my flak jacket on, re-enlistment certificate, and all the paperwork inside the flak jacket, underneath the dang plates, patrolling about. So it was pretty interesting, and another, I guess you could say, humbling experience, because I deployed with support elements, but actually being out, even in, I guess you could say, that administrative capacity with an infantry battalion, it showed me that there was so much more to this experience that a lot of people just aren't aware of, just where you're being out there and you're thinking you have a route that you will patrol, but that route, some people don't know, is going right through the communities, and seeing so many people that are out there, and you're not for sure of who is bystander, friend, or potential foe. And so it's one that I give my props to anyone that serves in a combat arms capacity, in particular infantry side of the house. That it's a lot that goes on with the decision making, situational awareness, and also ability to maintain one's balance in all of that. And I just, like I said, it's a lot that much more that can be put in words.
Yeah. What year is your third deployment?
I want to say that was around 2006.
Okay. Any major differences that you noticed between first and third deployment? Any changes, good or bad?
Oh yeah. Where just with the first deployment, it was a lot of swift action, constant movement. Excuse me. But where I remember in my first deployment, and mind you, where my battalion was not there for as long as some others, because of us having just came off of a deployment. But where, as I mentioned, it was just a lot of swift movement, and I remember the objective that everyone spoke of was getting to Baghdad. And with this time, it was engaging the insurgents. And it felt that there was so much unexpected complexity because we would get wind of people from other countries being part of the terrorist actions, new players coming in to teach the insurgents new techniques. As I mentioned before, we did not have IEDs at the time, and they were ever present there. Also, just as I mentioned, where with all of that, I think where that was the closest experience I had with losing someone. That in my first deployment, as I mentioned, it was a lot of swift action, and our unit was in and out of theater in what I feel was short order compared to others. And the second deployment, there was some experiences with death, but the difference with this third one was that I joined this unit. I'd gotten to know this sergeant major and had several engagements with him, had several engagements with many of the Marines that were there, because a lot of them were either at the end of their first enlistment and having to make a decision of whether they would remain in active duty Marine Corps service, and a few of them did re-enlist. But just having gotten to know those people and then hearing the news that this person was killed in action. As I mentioned, in particular, our Sergeant Major Joseph J. Ellis, where he, I just talked with him, maybe say like that evening before. I think I may have even spoken with him early that morning, but it was just to see that he was there and to know of his dreams and aspirations, because he'd just been approved for retirement from the Marine Corps, where this was going to be his last deployment. And he always said that he accomplished his dream to be able to lead a Marine Infantry battalion in a combat theater. And just once again, seeing all of that and having those close connections and then having them shattered. And once again with this, by a suicide bomber. I had never experienced that in my previous deployments, or just, I guess you could say, or having any awareness of that. So that part, I guess you could say, really stuck with me. But I guess you could say, where once again say finding purpose in the pain, is that I feel that it's one of the things that keeps me moving forward, because just with the moral injury related to all of that, and I won't go into the details, but it's just the biggest thing is I would think, why am I still here? And so now being able to say that, well, I'm still here because, well, I can't say exactly why, but I know that I need to make good use of the time, and using that to try and help others. I say try because I don't know what the end outcome will be, but I say just doing the best I can, and not trying to spend so much time wallowing and thinking me.
Right. So it really puts a different perspective on your life.
Yeah.
In situations like that.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit. What are living conditions like?
And deployments, oh boy. So I'll tell you, where if we talk about Westpac or Western Pacific cruises, and once again I just say cruise, I think is more of us trying to find a happy point in all of this. A lot of cramped quarters, a lot of people in packed spaces, and sometimes being subjected to or seeing a lot of things that you really could have gone the rest of your life without.
Right. You really get to know your fellow man.
Yeah. Great way of putting it. In Iraq, my first deployment, we spent a lot of time in the dirt, where I remember setting up our tents at the end of a day, where if we were just at a checkpoint that wasn't in near, I guess you could say, any other facilities, but we would set up our tent, and I wake up that morning with a tent full of sand, but a lot of sleeping in the dirt. The second time that I went, when we were in Al-Assad, it was a former Iraqi base. So we utilized their structures, built a lot of things up. And while it may not be as comfortable as being at home, it was definitely a lot better than what I'd experienced before. The third one, back to the tents. Once again, I look at it to where, hey, it's an infantry battalion, so you're going to be out in the dirt. But I do remember that when I arrived, because one of the things being a career planner and where I was processing a lot of re-enlistments because where the folks wanted to get their re-enlistment bonus tax-free, I was able to have my, I guess, like forward movement delayed a bit so that I could process paperwork at places they had internet. And when I arrive, I see it and I'm just like, is this a trash dump? Are we in a landfill? And everyone that was already there was like, you shut your mouth. You don't say anything. You got a chance to spend 2 extra weeks in Al-Assad. We were here sleeping on garbage. Like they had to bring bulldozers out and move this stuff around. So when I talk about how trashy the conditions could be, yes, and there was full pun intended there. But that was the, I guess, I feel like the a great, or the only way I can really say describe that third one is that we had Marines living in austere conditions and having to go through continuous improvement. And I would tell you, it just shows the grit of like those that were there, where they don't call 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines the magnificent bastards for nothing, because they are able to handle the worst and still produce the best.
Yeah. How about morale?
I feel that there never was an issue with morale with any of my deployments. I think that we all, we knew that things were not good. And I guess with our training that we were able to just off instinct keep focused on the mission, and with that focus having a bit of, I guess you could say, dark or twisted humor to keep everyone in, like, say, at least decent spirits. I can't speak for the mindset of everyone else while we were there, but I just know that my fellow Marines and some of the antics that they would bring would make the difference on a tough day.
Gotcha. How about keeping in touch with family? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I would say where it was really a matter of where we were, but and I would say family, as crass as it may sound, was not, I guess you could say, at the forefront of my thoughts on like a daily basis. I think that it's just where deep down, I would say I knew that there are no phones. There won't be any opportunities for extended conversation. So I'm just going to put that to the side for the moment. But then when we were nearing a location that did afford those luxuries, then I would say, okay, well, while I'm here, I need to make sure that I go to the, phone center and make a quick call. And so, yeah, it was just really, I guess you could say, family came into, like, say, the forefront of my thoughts when I knew that it would be a, I guess, viable opportunity to engage with them, where they would still be on my mind, where on occasion it's not like I'm like, okay, it's mission time. What family? I don't have one. No, they would come there and I would think, okay, well, I miss my family. And when I had the opportunity to talk with them, then those, like, I guess, say, feelings would rush to the front, and we'll have a quick conversation to check in, and then right back to the work.
Yeah. How about adjusting once you came back from deployment? Any issues with adjusting?
I don't know if there was something to give me an inclination of the tempo beforehand, but I definitely don't ever really feel that I settled in or acknowledged being back as returning home until after my third deployment. And the only reason for that was because I got orders to a non-deployable unit, and then it sank in that I'm back and I'm going to be here for a while. But it was one of those things that I guess you could say, in my mind, it was that notion of don't get comfortable, you're going to be going again. And there were some things that did not always sit well with me, where I guess you could say crowds after a while became to be a source of discomfort. I do remember driving where it just, for myself, and I didn't really say drive on too many activities, but I think maybe even just being in the vehicle and thinking, okay, we need to have buffer or some type of space, that transitioned over into my driving when I was back home. And I remember many a times that it seemed that, especially for my wife, that she would get irritated and ask, why are you driving in the middle of the lane? Like, why are you not using the far right or the far left? And all I could say is, I need my bubble. I need my bubble. And I didn't, I guess, say have the language beyond that to communicate what I was feeling. So that created a bit of friction. And so there was a lot that I guess you could say I had to adjust to, or really did not adjust to well, where I didn't, I guess, recognize a lot of it until now. Well, I'll say the thoughts have come, but I feel that one of the things that I became really talented with is, I guess you could say, coincidental amnesia, maybe. Just pushing things off to the side, and being able to focus on the essentials for the moment. But yeah, it's and like I say, it's a lot of things that even now I struggle with, and I'm growing to learn. But I would tell you just to kind of prevent any further long-windedness on that part. There was a lot of anger and aggression that I was not aware of, and feelings of shame, and also feeling out of touch with the world. And that was everyone, like my family, everything. And so it was a lot to get used to. And I feel that it's still a learning process.
Yeah. Looking back on your time, how do you think that your time, especially your combat time, has affected or changed or shaped who you are now?
I feel like it definitely has changed me, and where there's part of me that I guess accepts it and looks at the change to say, well, we can take this and move forward with it. And then there's a small degree, well, I guess you could say I look at it to where, I guess, modestly putting it to say, small degree of regret. But there's definitely a lot of things that I wish that could have turned out different. I guess pretty strong degree of shame, because just thinking of those that didn't make it back, and even feeling that with one in particular that there's a degree of fault that I hold with that, and I feel that it could come off as like being egomaniacal or just a bit of inflated ego, but it's just one of those things that I feel we all kind of look at things, and if we're in close enough proximity to the action, to ask ourselves, what could have gone different if I, in my part of it, had done this thing another way? Would there have been a different outcome? But that's just one of the big things I feel that in our life's journey, that we have a number of waypoints. And with those major, I guess you could say, waypoints is where I feel it significantly affects the structure of our emotional and spiritual being. And that's kind of one of the things I look at now, where when I am having a bad day, where if I can catch myself before I start down that slippery slope, I will be able to tell myself that there's somebody out there that would love to have my problem, and it's one that I know they always say that there's someone out there that has it worse, but I now look at things to say, but there's always someone out there that can make it better, and trying to make myself one of those people that can make it better. As I mentioned, I don't always succeed, but it's a learning process.
Yeah. Last question for you. Let's fast forward 100 years. Somebody sees this interview. What message, what advice would you give them, especially somebody who's considering a career in the military?
Well, for someone that's considering a career in the military, I would, one, advise them to begin with the end in mind. That regardless of how stellar you are or how much passion that you may have for what you're doing, it has to come to an end at some point. And if you, like I say, you got to prepare for tomorrow. Regardless of what your level of prep is, tomorrow's going to come. So make sure that you're ready. And I guess you could say, be forgiving of yourself, because where every point of trouble, maybe just that, it's a passing moment. It's not a tragedy. And I think that a lot of times that we overinflate the situation and allow it to weigh us down. And so that's just one, well, a couple of the things that I would say, but other than that, it's just to remember that as long as, say, you don't quit, you have the possibility for a win.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Yeah. Very good advice. Well, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, thank you for taking your time out of your day and sitting down and talking to us.
Thank you.
I do appreciate that.
Awesome.
And more importantly, I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
A lot of people complain about a lot of things, who have never slept in a ditch, who have never faced death like guys like you did. So it is much appreciated.
Well, thank you. Thank you.